Today I'm diving deep into London's grisly past. We'll be going under the knife and taking a forensic look at the horrors of Victorian medicine. And there's no better place to do so than by exploring one of London's hidden gems, the old operating theatre museum and herb Garret. So if you're someone who's fascinated by the gory, the gruesome and the downright bizarre, this'll be just what the doctor ordered. Stick around to see if I survive the operating table, and don't forget to subscribe and click that notification button. Wish me luck.
You're gonna die.
This is all that remains of what was once one of London's most important centres of medicine, the old site of St Thomas's Hospital. When it was in use, it was a vast complex. However, in 1862, the land was purchased to make way for the construction of the Charing Cross Railway Viaduct from London Bridge Station. Now the hospital is located in a modern building opposite the Houses of Parliament. And this garret, part of St Thomas's Church, is one of the only surviving parts of the original structure. And at the top of a very windy staircase is the original apothecary and herb garret for Old St Thomas's Hospital. The apothecary was the medical professional whose main role was to produce and dispense herbal remedies, poultices, or even potions. And the word garret comes from the Old French, which means watchtower or a sentry box. But today it simply means a little room at the top of the building, a type of attic. Whilst the apothecary had his laboratory, shop and storerooms down at street level, this garret was used to dry and store herbs, which would be used for medicine. Today, it's been transformed into this brilliant museum. At the start of the 19th century, our understanding of the human body and how it worked hadn't developed much for centuries, and so medical treatments were pretty medieval. It was a high-risk combination of chance and quackery. Doctors might recommend treatments such as a change of air or even leeches. Medicines were made of old recipes, generally using botanicals, whilst preparations of mercury, arsenic, iron and phosphorus were also popular, and probably quite dangerous. We've got all sorts of herbs here that the apothecary would have found pretty useful. We've got parsley, that was used to clean the blood. We've got some meadowsweet, which was something which was sacred to the Druids. It became a medieval mead herb, and actually Queen Elizabeth I used it as a kind of pain relief. We've got some raspberry leaf. Well, this would have been used for stomach ache. Sage, used for typhoid. Marigold, used to fight scrofula in children. And bay leaves. This would have been used to soothe your bruises. Not sure how effective that would have been. We've got some hops here. Now, these would have been used to treat insomnia, hysteria and tension. And hot tea is said to improve digestion. We've got some myrrh. Now, this was the medicine of the ancients, and that stimulates the body against septicemia and strengthens the immune system. And we've got some frankincense. Now, this is an ancient aromatic. Actually, Pliny mentions its use in Rome as an antidote to hemlock. And it was also used in China for leprosy. And apparently, along with gold, these two make quite good Christmas gifts. But this is the most dangerous cabinet in the whole garret because this is the poison cabinet. The bottles are colour-coded green. They've got this corrugated surface. That's so that you can have extra grip on the bottles because you don't want to be dropping these. And even on the necks of some of the bottles, we've got a bell. That's an extra alarm system to alert everyone around that these poisons are being handled. Ding dong. I love this display, which gives you a sense of what the old apothecary shops would have been like. Today I'm being served by Dr. Monica Walker. Monica, it's good to be back here at the apothecary shop.
Hi, Alice. I'm glad that you're here. What ails you today?
Well, I'm sorry to say that I have been suffering from a bit of a stomach ache. Is there anything you could do for me?
Oh, well, if I was in the Victorian era and I was, an apothecary, I would definitely have something for you.
Okay.
At that time period, obviously, you have the idea that every single disease was connected with the four humors, and that pretty much meant that your body's a little bit out of balance.
Okay, so we've got the four humors is blood, black bile, yellow bile, and phlegm.
Yes, you've got them all right. So you have both of them.
I'm all unbalanced. I'm all unbalanced.
You're all unbalanced. You are absolutely out of balance, which means that we have to put you back into balance. And the best ways that we can actually do that is by either giving you something that is going to make your belly feel better by basically emptying it as much as possible. That pretty much means that I'm going to give you either an emetic or a laxative, or something cathartic, something
whatever works.
A purgative in that case. So in the Victorian era, they would have gotten a couple of different kind of like herbs that have these kind of like properties. And what they would have done first, they would have grinded them as fine as possible. Just make sure that you had quite a lot of that really fine like active ingredient first. After that, they would have put together a little bit of like a mass that would have actually been done with glucose syrup or something that will allow you later on to kind of like be able to knead it, kind of like this. And of course, by then, this kind of like little bar would have contained some of these active ingredients that we actually have here. What that means now is that I want to make sure that I'm going to give you the right amount instead of giving you way too much or not enough.
So it's a kind of measuring.
So it's a kind of measurement.
Device.
What we have here is a pill making machine, and it's all about standardizing basically the quantities that are going to be given to the patients. Then, of course, I already have my little mass with my active ingredient here, and I'm going to place it at the center of the pill making machine. After that, I'm going to grab my pill maker section, and what I'm going to do is that I am physically going to go down here, and then let's see if we can do this right. I have to really like anchor myself to do this as well, because now basically is that we're going to be doing this.
Oh yeah.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we actually see that we are starting to make little rolls of pills. After this was kind of like finalized, what you actually do is you varnish them, and after varnishing them, you can either use talcum powder, or in some cases, if you are very fancy and you have enough money, you can also use silver. At which point you just put all of your tiny little balls in here.
Hang on, silver?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound very good for you. Is that a...
So it's just a coat. It's just the external coating. Today we actually use sugar to coat them so that it doesn't, like the first time that you taste a medicine, it doesn't like, oh my God, it's disgusting. So in the past you actually had the talcum powder, but you also could have sometimes you could have silver or gold if you were very fancy. That just means that you could actually charge more for the medicine. But it actually did the same kind of function as having the talcum or the sugar nowadays. So this is your pill.
Thank you
now
so
you
much.
take it, and now
so do I just have that straight? Any water?
You can have that straight. It's just that you better make sure that you have a toilet nearby when you do that.
Okay, you ready? Thank you.
You're welcome.
A happy customer. But over the course of the Victorian period, a revolution took place. The outdated treatments based on superstition or quackery were replaced. By the end of the century, there were modern hospitals with stethoscopes, operating tables, white coats, and x-rays. But what caused this transformation? Well, the Industrial Revolution pushed thousands into cities to work in the new factories, where many people lived in poverty, in spaces which were overcrowded and unsanitary. Smallpox, typhus, tuberculosis, and cholera spread like wildfire through the tenement blocks. It was so bad that the government was forced to investigate. And these investigations helped us establish links between poverty and disease, about how disease spreads, and brought in poor laws and reform acts. So it was a real time of experimentation, of making mistakes, and learning from them too. And St. Thomas's was no different. In 1822, part of the Herb Garret was converted into a purpose-built operating theatre. Instead of the operations taking place in the women's wards in front of all the other patients, they could be performed here by leading experts, where medical students could watch and learn.
One of the surgeons described the scene here. The first 2 rows, he said, were occupied by the dressers, and behind a second partition stood the pupils, packed like herrings in a barrel, but not so quiet. There was a continual calling out of heads, heads to those about the table, whose heads interfered with the sightseers.
And now it's my turn to go under the doctor's knife. Wish me luck.
Good morning. Today's operation is going to take place in the operating theatre, the women's wards. Our patient Alice had just been run over by a cart in Borough Market. She has suffered a compound fracture, which pretty much means that the bone has broken and basically broken through the skin. So I can still see your bone coming out of your leg. Ouch. And then I'm actually going to be ready to prep Alice for the operation. I'm wearing my amazing apron. I wear it all the time to my operations. The amount of blood in it indicates how skilled I am. And as you can tell, it's so bloody, it shows that I am a really, really good surgeon. Now, of course, I am going to open my fantastic surgical kit from 1835. And the first thing that we want to do is ensure that you do not lose any additional blood. Therefore, first thing that is going to happen is that Alice is going to get a tourniquet around her leg. So if you can please raise your leg slightly, I will place a tourniquet. This is just so that you do not die of blood loss during the operation. It will be tied, very, very tight at the time. Of course, once this has happened, the surgeon is not here alone. I am actually here with imaginary assistants called dressers, 4 of them. They will be helping me throughout the operation. And amongst their performance is going to be to hold you down with their physical bodies so that you do not move throughout the entire procedure. So now that we actually have you in the operating table, you must know that chances are you were blindfolded in the past. So you didn't have to worry about the 150 students that would have been in this space with me trying to learn by observation how surgical procedures were done in the past. Some of them will be smoking, so the space will actually have a cloud of smoke above me. And of course, there'll be sawdust all over the operating table to ensure that no blood is going to make me slip while I have a knife in my hand. Health and safety, people, that's important, okay? Now that I am ready.
Is there no anesthetic coming?
What is 1823? No. You know, there is no anesthetics coming. They don't come into existence until the end of 1846, beginnings of 1847. So yeah, you actually have a little bit of time left. So now that I am ready for the operation, I make sure that a blood box is placed underneath your leg because we, again, don't want any extra blood to be actually spilled. We want to make sure that this is done as efficiently and as fast as possible. So now that I am ready, my assistants are around here holding you down, making sure that nothing is going to happen. We are basically ready now to begin the operation. Because your compound fracture has happened somewhere around your tibia, we are going to cut right underneath your knee because we always want to try to save the knee. That pretty much means that I'm going to grab one of my knives, which is quite a beautiful knife. Obviously, it has a beautiful wooden handle, which, of course, at that time period, we have had lots and lots of germs. But hey, it's fascinating. But now I have the knife. Now I am ready to amputate. And of course, the first thing that I'm going to do is that I actually need to figure out where the bone is. And for that, I need to be able to see it. So I actually need to cut through. So I'm going to get into a very stable horseback riding stance. I'm going to bring my hand through here, grab the knife, and cut in an oval shape around your leg. Important. I'm done. I'm going to do this for the next one in my operating table. So they see that it's kind of clean, right? After that, I still need to be able to physically see the bone. So that pretty much means that we're going to have to retract the meat. And to do that, we're going to use our hands. So you're going to pull the meat down in one direction. Remember that little oval? It means that there is a flap on the top. So I'm going to pull all of that in the opposite direction. So I get to see about this much of your bone, because I need to see what I'm doing, right? Maybe one of my assistants that was around here will be holding the top of that meat with their apron, which will also be filled with blood and pus from previous operations. And now I actually get to see the bone. Therefore, I am ready to use my bone saw and amputate. And all of my students need to be very aware that this is what's happening. I am grabbing my bone saw. The operating table, as you can see, has an extension for the good leg, you know? And of course, that pretty much means that it doesn't really matter how tall you are. We can always accommodate someone who is taller or someone that is shorter. Also, the operating table is meant to actually be used for several types of operations. And for that purpose, you don't have to have an extension all the time. Now that I have my bone saw and I'm ready to go, I'm just, again, need to be very stable. And what I'm going to do is basically use my body weight to go all the way through. Now, there's two indentations at the bottom of the operating table, which pretty much means that I'm giving my saw somewhere to go. Because if it stops the motion halfway through, it means that I'm going to have to do this a lot more times. And that's not what you want. You want to go all the way through as fewer times as possible. Mm-hmm. And of course, the fact that the operating table is so low allows me to use that body weight to give that somewhere to go, and at the same time, I can use the strength that I need to actually do this. I've done this in a couple of strikes. The leg has come off, my assistant has grabbed it, put it in the block box, and kicked it underneath the operating table. Now, unfortunately, I have left a couple of splinters there, which means that I'm going to use my bone nippers, and I'm going to try to cut through, whatever bits and pieces of bone are left, At this stage, I may actually look at your face to see how you're doing, because that, fabulous headrest is not there for my patient's comfort. It's actually there so I can see whether, up until this point, have you died of shock? Have you passed out? Or are you still holding and biting down the pain as you are suffering through this with no anesthesia, also no antiseptics? And then, of course, we have to continue because obviously we have a lot of major, veins and arteries in your legs that are kind of crucial that we need to deal with so that you do not die of blood loss. And of course, that pretty much means that in the past, sometimes they were cauterized, meant that you burn the endings. And if not, then you get something like this, which are called ligature clamps. And what they do is that allows you to grab the endings of those veins, the main ones, the main arteries, pull them out, so you will literally pull some of those veins out of your body. They used to have something like a crochet needle to tie the endings. And once that's done, you will get a piece of thread that has been living in that box, which could have been made of cat's gut, pig's gut, horse's hair, silk if you're lucky. And then I will tie those endings, push them back into your body, put this back where it belongs. And after that, of course, I'm the surgeon, I am done, but my assistants still have something to do. The job of the assistant, at that time called dressers, was basically to grab that excess meat, and put it over the wound, because then, chances of infection are less, even though they didn't know that it was infection. It was one of the main reasons that they discovered that having an open wound all the time, if you do a circular, might not be a great idea. Having a cover, on the other hand, might give you a better chance, also for comfort. So they will just sew it back together. You may actually get some dressings, and then you are actually done. Amputation has been completed. Best ones would have been completed in under 2 minutes. Patient is alive and breathing. It would be quite natural to give my patient now about half a pint of brandy.
Yeah,
so you actually get into a drunken stupor to deal with the pain, and then send into the women's wards to deal with the aftermath, which probably involve infection. And then whether you survive or not, it's up to you and your body.
Despite the gruesome nature of these procedures, the female patients who made it onto the operating table here would have considered themselves lucky. Most of them were poor and were prepared to put up with the distress of a live audience in order to receive treatment from the best surgeons in London. In fact, the trial and error of these operations led to major breakthroughs in surgical practice, paving the way for the huge advances in medicine in the 20th century.
So there you have it. Those are the delights, or should I say the horrors, of the old operating theatre, museum and herb garret. I'd really recommend a visit if you're ever in London. Of course, I made it out okay, but you might not be quite so lucky. If you did enjoy this video, check out our other video on the SS Great Britain, where you can find out all about how the Victorians did cruising. See you next time.